Monica stood at the bar, wiping glasses, and thought about her past. She was habitually absorbed in her thoughts, not noticing how time was passing, and her hands were mechanically doing their usual work. The Golden Rose restaurant was quiet, although the evening was just beginning. The halls of the restaurant, filled with soft light, were already beckoning their guests to cozy tables, and the waiters, despite the mediocrity of their movements, still tried to create an atmosphere of elegance and comfort. Monica was one of those people who could do their work without fuss, calmly and professionally. She was used to this place where no one knew her as a rich heiress, but only as an ordinary waitress doing her job. Monica couldn't say she liked it, but she was used to it. This was her life now. Life after her world had crumbled. Her memory still vividly remembered the days when, as a student, she had sat with her parents in their luxurious home, enjoying the privileges that wealth brought. But all that was in the past. The misfortune that took away her parents, as well as all her financial assets, left Monica alone and destitute. She had no job, no loved ones, and no support. She was forced to start at the lowest level, and working in a restaurant was her salvation, though not her best choice. Still, she tried not to dwell on her poverty. Things will get better someday, she told herself. Pensive, Monica looked up out of habit. She noticed him at once, sitting in the corner of the restaurant by the window. He wasn't particularly conspicuous, didn't stand out among the other diners, but something about his appearance caught her attention. He sat leaning on his elbow and seemed to be scrutinizing the menu. His hair was a little unkempt and his clothes were not too new, but neat and, most surprisingly, quite expensive for a mere traveler. But that wasn't the point. His eyes were the kind of eyes that at once attracted attention. Deep, dark, with some inexplicable glints in them, they seemed full of hidden pain and emotion that she couldn't connect his image with. It was about 10 minutes before he finally noticed her gaze. His face changed slightly, and a slight, barely perceptible smile flashed across his lips. He didn't say a word, but his gaze remained on her. Monica felt her heart twitch slightly. This was strange. She hadn't been prepared for this, and when the man got up a few minutes later and made his way to the counter to order, her thoughts instantly focused on his figure. She was wary, but she didn't understand why. Perhaps there was something familiar about his demeanor, or rather indefinable. It made her stop her gaze, returning to his figure time after time, consumed with mystery. Strange, Monica muttered to herself, returning to her duties once more. Never mind. But he was back in front of her. He walked over to the counter and then, noticing that she was almost done cleaning up, he said politely, "I'm sorry, but I seem to have accidentally touched your glass. That's my fault. Is there anything I can do to help you? Is it badly spoiled?" Monica was a little surprised at how easily he spoke. Usually dinners avoid talking to waiters, especially if their interest didn't involve service. But his voice sounded confident and without a trace of arrogance, as if he were not just a customer, but something more than she could imagine. "Don't worry," she said, trying to regain control of the situation. "It's not a problem. It's just—" Monica stopped, feeling like she should have said something more casual, but her words remained unspoken in the air. The man smiled back and nodded slightly. "Perhaps there is something I can help you with," he said, subtly tilting his head, and sincere benevolence played in his eyes. Monica felt her heart respond to that look. It was strange. The man wasn't exceptionally handsome, but his calmness and confidence drew her attention. Something inside her began to grab, something she had long forgotten, something that reminded her of a time when her life was still meaningful. "No, thank you," she said, even though it wasn't entirely true. She herself didn't understand what was stopping her from just thanking him. The man nodded in response and walked over to the table, holding his gaze a little longer. Monica watched as he sat down, once again immersed in his thoughts. But now she couldn't just forget his image anymore. He wasn't overly attractive nor particularly interesting in terms of looks, but his mystery, like an untold something, hooked her. The evening went on, but Monica couldn't shake the feeling that this random guest had somehow become the center of her thoughts. He stayed not just as a stranger to her, but a mystery she couldn't solve. In the evening, when her shift was over, she lingered for a few minutes, pondering what was happening. Why did this man have such a hold on her soul? Why, despite his outward modesty, did he evoke such a storm of emotion in her? Monica could not find an answer. Perhaps she simply missed something new, the feeling of something alive that she hadn't experienced in a long time. But perhaps it was more than that. And she couldn't have known that this random moment would be the beginning of something more, something that would change her life. Monica woke up the next morning with a feeling of strange lightness in her chest. It seemed like the entire day she'd spent at work had been soaked up by the very moment she'd met him. The man sitting in the corner of the restaurant was a mystery to her, and thoughts of him never left her. Monica tried to convince herself that it was just a coincidence that she shouldn't dwell on fleeting encounters. But every time she tried to bring her thoughts back to normal, her gaze was drawn back to the very table by the window where he was sitting. His eyes, calm, deep, and full of some hidden meaning, gave her no rest. The next day, when she came to work again, the same strange rhythm awaited her. The restaurant was full of guests, the waiters, as always, worked quickly and smoothly, and Monica, preparing tables and serving orders, felt a little distant, as if everything around her was not happening to her. It was business as usual, but something inside her was different. Monica couldn't understand how an ordinary guest could cause such a storm of emotions. That day, as always, she brought some dishes to the table for one of the visitors, and as she passed by, she noticed him again. The same man with mysterious eyes. He was sitting by his favorite window, in the same pose she remembered him from. I don't know why, but Monica sensed that he was waiting for her gaze again. He looked up, and a barely perceptible smile appeared on his face, as if he knew she had noticed him. This time she couldn't just walk by. She approached his desk with slight excitement, trying to hide it as she always did, but her heart was still pounding faster. He met her gaze again. "Good evening," he said in a soft but confident voice. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'd like to order another coffee. A strong one, if you please, like yesterday. And also, if it's not too much trouble." He paused for a moment. "Can we talk for a moment? I don't mean to be intrusive, but it would be nice to talk to you." Monica, despite her usual restraint, felt herself becoming curious. Something about this stranger was so appealing and strange. She realized that this conversation was going to be very different from all the others. She nodded, and not expecting this response from herself, she said, "Sure, I'll bring your order." When she returned with the coffee, he was no longer so formal. He smiled wider, and his gaze was more open, less wary. "Thank you. I don't think it was just a coincidence that we met. Sometimes fate throws up moments when everything that seems random actually comes together," he said, leaning back in his chair and looking at her with obvious interest. Monica grinned, sensing that now the conversation was not going to be what she had imagined. This wasn't just a waiter and a customer. He was someone who was interested in her, not just as an attendant. Monica felt her face redden slightly, but tried to still be calm. "Maybe," she said with a slight smile. "Everything can be, but I believe more in coincidence. And all this talk of fate, it's too big for moments like ours." He laughed. The laugh was light, casual, and it made her feel less tense. "You're right. It's just that sometimes you want to believe in something more. I mean, you can't help but notice how things work out. I've been to this cafe several times, and every time you bring an order, I can't help but notice your restraint and calmness. Something about your demeanor makes me think you're more than just a waitress." Monica sighed slightly. She hadn't been prepared for such revelations, but she felt her interest in this man intensify. He wasn't rich or famous, but his look and the way he spoke made her wonder about a lot of things. He could have been anything, an ordinary man she wouldn't have to deal with, but something about him clung to her. "Thank you for the compliment," she replied, trying to hide her emotion. "But I'm just doing my job. I don't have any special secrets. I just try to do my job well." He smiled, and his gaze became more wary, as if he was thinking about something important. "Perhaps that's your secret. You don't tell anyone who you really are, but your calmness and confidence speak for themselves. That's rare in our world." Monica felt her heart squeeze slightly. He couldn't know about her past, couldn't know who she really was. He didn't know that her life was completely ruined. She was just trying to be normal like everyone else, but still harbored a secret she couldn't reveal. "Maybe," she said quietly, trying not to give away her thoughts. "I prefer to keep my private life to myself. It's easier." He looked at her again, his gaze soft and attentive. "I understand, but sometimes it's not worth hiding your real self from others. I'm sure there's something wonderful behind it." Monica didn't know what to say. She felt that his words hurt her. He sounded like a man who, despite his words, was trying to find more than just idle conversation. Her gaze met his, and she realized that his words meant more than mere politeness. "Do you think I'm hiding something more?" she asked, trying not to sound too suspicious. He nodded slightly. His face was serious. "I think everyone hides their true selves at some point. Perhaps it's an instinct of self-preservation. But I'm sure that if you allowed yourself to be more open, you would feel freer. It doesn't mean you have to reveal all your secrets at once. It's just that sometimes you have to let people see the real you." Monica fell silent. She couldn't exactly say why, but her thoughts began to swirl around his words. Perhaps at some point she was ready to reveal more to him than just her job. But what exactly could she tell him? Several days passed, and every time Monica walked into the Golden Rose, her gaze involuntarily sought him out. The man whose name she still didn't know had become her unexpected companion in her daily life. Even though they had only met a couple of times, she could already sense that something had changed in her feeling of the world. His calmness, confidence, and even a strange friendliness overshadowed everything else. He had become more than just a customer of the restaurant, but something more significant than she could have imagined. Monica realized that this was a moment of change in her life. She couldn't stop thinking about him. Every time she brought him coffee or brought his order, she felt her heart beat faster. She tried not to show it, but he must have noticed by now. Monica couldn't hide how much this man affected her. And yet, despite the growing feeling, she couldn't let go of the old fears, her secrets that she'd kept inside for so long. That night, when she approached his table with her order, he met her with a look full of anticipation. He seemed to know that something was happening, that Monica was no longer the person she used to be. She felt that she couldn't just go on with this game, where she was just a waitress, and he was the mystery customer. "Monica," he said as she placed a cup of coffee on the table, "I feel like there's more between us than just casual conversation. You know, I'm pleased that you're so attentive, but I sense there's something you're not telling me. Am I right?" Monica felt her heart clenched. Those words were correct. She had long felt that he saw her not only as a waitress, but as a woman to talk to. She knew her secret couldn't stay hidden for long. He was too attentive, too perceptive. But at the same time, she wasn't ready to open up to him. "Yeah." She paused, trying to find the words. "It's not that simple. I can't just tell you everything at once." He nodded, as if he understood her words, but his eyes were full of anticipation. "You don't have to tell all your secrets at once, Monica," he said softly, "but I want you to know that I'm not judging you. I just want to understand what lies behind your calmness. You're very strong, I can see that. But maybe you need to allow yourself to be vulnerable. I want to be there for you if you want to talk." Monica closed her eyes for a moment, feeling her heart filled with conflicting emotions. He sounded like a man who was willing to accept her for who she was, despite her past, despite what she tried to hide. It was like a breath of fresh air, but also a huge fear at the same time. Why was she so afraid to open up to him? Why did her past continue to hang over her life like a dark cloud? "I don't know where to begin," she finally said, her voice sounding quiet but determined. "My life was different before. I wasn't always like this. I didn't always work here, and I didn't always live the way I do now." He listened intently, not interrupting, and she felt his gaze grow even softer. "You can tell me everything when you're ready, Monica. I won't rush you. I just want to understand you better." Monica sighed. She realized that she couldn't hide her past forever. She knew that if she really wanted to be with him, she had to learn to trust. And maybe this was her time to stop hiding her pain and finally open up to someone who was willing to understand her. "I was born into a wealthy family," she began, looking around as if she was afraid someone would overhear. "But after a tragedy, the loss of my parents, I was left alone. My loved ones, the people I grew up with, were no longer a part of my life. I found myself in a void, in a world where I had no choice but to start over. I worked in different places, and here I am. This is where my new life began. Without all the things that came before, without the connections, without the people that defined my path." Her words sounded like a confession. Monica felt her chest tighten, and for a moment she thought her past wouldn't let her go. She looked up and saw that his eyes were full of sympathy. "You shouldn't feel guilty for what happened," he said, his voice soft but full of strength. "Your life is yours now. You don't have to live by the rules that were imposed on you in the past. You can be the person you want to be." Monica felt tears being held back in her eyes. He was right. But why was it so hard for her to believe that? Why was she still holding all the pain and fears hidden from the world? "I don't know how to continue," she said, her voice barely audible. "It's so complicated. I can't just forget what it was. I can't forget who I was." He reached out to her, his fingers lightly touching hers. Monica felt warm, and it was like a relief. "You don't have to forget, Monica," he said, his voice becoming more confident. "But you can choose what to do with that past. You can live your life. And if you want me to, I'll be there for you." Her heart beat faster. Monica realized that in front of her stood a man who could possibly be her support, her backbone. And though the fear of the unknown still held her back, she felt the fog she'd been carrying around for so many years dissipate a little. This conversation, this confession, was an important step forward for her, but she didn't yet know how their story would unfold. All she could do was learn to trust, and maybe this was her chance to start a new life, no longer hiding her true self. A few more days passed, and a relationship continued to develop between Monica and the stranger, whose name turned out to be John. Monica felt that her world, which had recently seemed so fragile and filled with doubts, began to change a little. He became a pillar for her, and despite his mysteriousness, she trusted him. But the more she opened up to him, the harder it was for her to hide her fear. She couldn't shake the feeling that her past would at some point destroy everything they were building. And she was also afraid that his care and attention might be about his nobility rather than his real feelings. Each of their dates began with John as if he was trying to see her again as a real woman, healed from everything she'd been through. He was patient. He didn't rush her, but Monica could feel how hard it was for her to open up. She couldn't let go of her pain. She couldn't forget how her life had been turned upside down. And even now, when John seemed to be her support, when he shared her worries, she couldn't be sure it wasn't just a game. She couldn't figure out whether her bond with him was true love or just affection for the man who seemed to be her only salvation in this chaos. One day when she arrived at his house after work, John noticed how tired and restless she looked. It wasn't unusual. She was often like that. But today his gaze was especially insistent. He knew that her fears, her doubts and worries about their relationship were becoming more and more clear. She couldn't hide them, no matter how hard she tried. "Monica," he said, as she sat down beside him on the couch, "I can see that you can't let go of your pain. I'm not asking you to forget, but I am asking you to start living here and now, with us. You shouldn't be afraid to be happy." Monica lowered her head, her shoulders slightly tense. Her voice was quiet, almost inaudible, when she answered, "I'm afraid, John. I'm afraid that if I start to believe it, if I open my heart, I could lose everything again. I can't go through that pain again. I can't lose everything again." His hand gently touched her arm, and he looked at her with such sincerity that her heart sank. "You're not going to lose me, Monica. I'm not forcing you to open up prematurely, but I want you to know that you're not alone. We've both been through something important in our lives, and it shouldn't ruin what we have between us." But Monica couldn't shake this feeling that her past was standing like a wall between them. She knew John was sincere, but she couldn't figure out how long she could keep that distance from him. "I can't forget," she whispered. "I can't forget what it was. I can't forget that I wasn't always like this. I was different. And I don't know if I can be the person you want me to be." He sighed, but his eyes never left her. He knew that her fears wouldn't go away overnight, and that he would need time to show her that she wasn't alone, that she could be real around him. But he was afraid too, afraid that it would remain unresolved, that she would shut herself away from him again. He didn't know how to help her through that barrier, through the fear she carried inside her, but he was willing to do anything to be there for her. "You don't have to be someone you don't want to be, Monica. You're already strong, and you can be someone you are. You can be you. If you let yourself do that, you'll see that there's more between you and me than you think. You're not alone. You will never be alone if you allow yourself to be happy." Those words penetrated her soul, and in that moment, she felt something inside her begin to break. Everything she had been hiding, everything she had been holding inside of her, began to weigh on her. She realized that maybe she was afraid of losing him, but really, she was afraid of losing herself. She looked into his eyes, and in that moment, everything became clear. She could be herself. She could allow herself to love despite her pain. She could trust despite her past. She could let go of her anxiety, if only she believed that she and he deserved to be happy. "I don't know how it's going to be, John," she said, her voice more confident, "but I'm willing to try. I'm ready to start believing it." He smiled, a look of relief on his face. "You've taken the first step, Monica, and I'll be there to help you take the second." And in that moment, despite all her doubts, she felt her heart begin to beat faster. Monica realized that she was ready to go through the ordeal of being with him, because despite her fears, despite everything that stood between them, she knew one thing. She no longer wanted to hide from what she could feel, and perhaps this step was her most important. It had been a few days since that conversation, and the air had grown lighter between Monica and John. Monica still felt the tension, but it was different now, less acute. She no longer held her fear so tightly. Every day with him was a little easier, despite all her worries and fears. Now that she had taken the first step, a new space opened up for the trust she had feared for so long. John was patient. He understood that her journey would not be easy, that it would be hard for her to let go of her pain, but he believed she was capable of it. He continued to support her, not forcing things, but not letting her shut down either. Sometimes, just sitting next to her in silence, he could feel her opening up, her heart beginning to reveal the emotions she had hidden for so long. He didn't rush her. He knew she had to make this journey on her own, but he was always there, ready to support her. As time went on, their relationship grew deeper and deeper. Monica began to realize that despite her fears, she was ready to open up to John, not only about her pain, but also about the part of herself that she had been hiding for so long. She began to trust him more and more, and despite her inner barriers, she felt her world slowly begin to change. One evening, as they sat in the cafe where they had once met, she decided to talk about something that had long plagued her. "John," she began, her voice a little nervous, "I want to tell you something. I know we've both been through a lot, and I don't want you to think I'm hiding anything from you. I have to tell you about my past." He met her gaze, and his eyes were full of understanding. "You don't have to tell me anything, Monica, if you don't want to. I'm here for you no matter what you tell me," he said, but there was a softness and support in his voice that she appreciated so much. Monica took a deep breath. Her words could have changed everything, but she knew it was her choice. She couldn't hide her pain any longer. "I grew up in a wealthy family. My parents were famous businessmen. We had everything we could dream of. I never thought about money. But then, everything changed. My parents died in an accident, and it ruined my life. I lost not only them, but everything I had. We never spoke to them, but they were still a part of me. I could no longer be the girl I used to be. All I had was emptiness." Her voice shook as she spoke, and John was silent, giving her time. "I didn't know how to live after that. Everything I had built was destroyed. I couldn't go back to that world, and I didn't want to go back. I decided to start over, work as a regular waitress, forget everything. But even so, I still felt that something was wrong. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get back to my real life." John slowly reached out and took her hand. His touch was soft, warm, and it gave her the strength to continue. "You're not alone, Monica. I realize you've been through a rough time, but you've been able to rise up. You're stronger than you think. I'm proud of you for being able to open up to me," he said quietly but confidently. Her heart beat faster. He didn't push her away, didn't treat her past as something that would ruin their relationship. He hadn't judged her. He was just there for her, understanding her. "I'm afraid you'll be disappointed in me. I'm afraid that my life is too complicated for you to accept me for who I am," she confessed, feeling her words seem to burst out of the depths of her soul. He squeezed her hand tighter and looked into her eyes. "Monica, I won't be disappointed in you. I didn't expect you to be perfect. I don't want you to change yourself to be someone else. I want to be you. You're not your past, and you don't have to live for it. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to be with you, and I want you to be able to be with yourself." Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of relief. She felt her fears slowly recede. She wasn't alone. He was with her, and that was more important than anything that had happened in her past. "You're right," she whispered. "I don't want to hide from you. I don't want to hide my feelings anymore." Sergei smiled at her, his face full of understanding and support. "I believe in you, Monica," he said, and his words became a strong and permanent promise to her. From that moment on, Monica began to let go of her fears. She realized that her journey had not been easy, but now she felt that she was not alone. John was there for her, ready to support her. Together they began to move forward, building a new life. A life where there was no room for fear and doubt. A life where there was room for love and trust. Even though the future was uncertain, Monica now knew one thing. She was ready to step into it with an open heart, unafraid of what might happen.